Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we are digging into a story that's, well, it's become shorthand for survival itself. Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe.
Exactly. And our source material for this deep dive is a bit unique. We're working from key excerpts pulled from a Finnish translation, actually.
That's right. And using these specific moments gives us, I think, a particular lens. It lets us really focus on the core insights Defoe lays out about human character, resilience, the role of fate.
And how dramatically life can pivot, yeah.
So our mission in this deep dive is to truly unpack Crusoe's incredible journey, because it's far more than just, a guy stuck on an island.
Oh, definitely. It's a narrative fueled by this reckless, youthful ambition, repeatedly derailed by failure, and ultimately utterly transformed by isolation.
And perhaps unexpectedly, a profound engagement with fate.
All right. Okay, let's dive in then. So we start in York, England, 1632, meeting young Robinson Crusoe. The background's interesting right away. His father was from Bremen, Germany. His mother's side gives him the name Robinson. The family name was originally Kreuznach or something like that. Huh. And he's got two older brothers. One died in battle. The other one just vanished, left home early, and was never heard from again.
And this family context, it immediately highlights the central tension in Crusoe's early life, doesn't it?
Yeah.
His father, this sensible man.
Yeah, wants him to be a lawyer, wants him to find that middle station in life, peaceful, prosperous, without huge risks.
A safe path.
Exactly. But Crusoe, he describes himself as being which
means
literally early, full of all sorts of dreaming and cloud chasing. He's got this restlessness, this innate pull towards adventure, towards seeking his fortune outside that steady path.
And he doesn't just feel it, he acts on it. Explicitly ignores his parents. He says, "And otanut kulivini korvinikan is a nuvoya."
I did not take heed of my father's advice. Yeah, it feels almost like an addiction to risk, doesn't it? It's something he just can't resist.
Which leads directly to his very first sea voyage, out of Hull.
And almost immediately, maybe fittingly, they hit a storm.
Yes. And there's this great little anecdote. His friend just dismisses the storm, calls it a Tulin two-house.
It's just a puff of wind.
Right. And what do? They decide, Teiden pinsiaya uno de tan kaiki vivadyavatsan ventit. Let's make punch and forget everything.
Forget all our troubles and stomach pains. It's this, deliberate act of escapism. And Crusoe notes it conveniently wipes away his initial feelings of regret about leaving home.
They literally drink away their conscience.
Pretty much. And that storm is just sort of the warm-up act for the first major disaster. They reach Yarmouth Roads, another storm hits, the boat capsizes near Winterton Ness.
Total wreck.
But they get pulled from the water, people on shore rescue them, they make it to Yarmouth safely.
Okay, so you've just survived a shipwreck.
Yeah.
Terrifying near-death experience, first trip out. What does Crusoe do? Does he think maybe Dad was right and head home?
Not a chance he doesn't. And he actually reflects on this, which is interesting. He thinks about the parable of the prodigal son.
Right, the parallel seems obvious.
Yeah, he sees it, the rebellion, the suffering, but he admits he lacks the resolve, the courage to actually go back. He feels like some unseen force, like fate, is actively pushing him away from safety, away from home.
So instead of home, London.
London it is. And there he meets a captain, a successful guy who'd made good money trading in Guinea, West Africa.
Okay.
And this captain, he sees something in Crusoe, encourages him, offers him free passage on the next trip, even tells him what sort of trinkets to buy for trade.
So Crusoe scrapes together, what was it, 40 pounds?
40 pounds, yeah, from friends back home, buys some bits and pieces.
And this first Guinea voyage, it actually works. It makes a profit.
He does. Now, you'd think maybe this is it. Maybe this is the middle station he can settle into. He's proven he can trade successfully.
Settle down? Maybe.
Not Crusoe. Yeah. He tells us the success, far from satisfying him, just fuels Corquilantoisia Sunatelmia high-flying plans.
Oh, dear.
And he says explicitly, these plans become his surrexi termioxeni, his great ruin. That taste of profit just amplifies his restlessness, his ambition, pushes him towards bigger risks.
And the good luck doesn't hold, does it?
Nope. His captain friend dies soon after they get back. Crusoe decides to sail again, this time with the guy who was the mate on the previous voyage.
Okay.
He does show a little bit of sense here, though. He leaves 200 pounds of his capital with the captain's widow before he sets off again.
A small safety net.
A very small one. A small concession to caution, but not enough. On this second voyage, near the Canary Islands, they get taken. Moorish pirates.
And just like that.
Just like that, Robinson Crusoe, aspiring merchant adventurer, is now a slave in Salé, Morocco.
Wow. So life as a slave. How's that depicted?
Well, interestingly, it's not portrayed as, constant brutal labor. His tasks are relatively manageable.
Yeah.
Gardening, fishing for his master.
Yeah.
And this is where he meets Shuri, a young Moorish boy who often goes with him on these fishing trips just outside the harbor.
His companion.
Yeah, and they have some close calls together out there. One time, this dense fog rolls in. They get completely lost at sea. Terrifying.
I can imagine.
Another time, they land to get fresh water and run into dangerous wild animals near the shore.
Which leads to that really vivid scene, doesn't it? Shooting the lion.
Oh, yeah. The Tavadamansarin leonin, an unusually large lion, sleeping under a rock ledge. Crusoe makes a point of saying it wasn't for food, but they spent the whole day skinning it anyway.
Like a trophy. Claiming something from the wildness.
Exactly. It's this very visceral detail that kind of sticks with you. And they have another encounter later, see two animals fighting, one jumps in the water. Crusoe shoots that one too. Turns out it's a big leopard.
More trophies.
Seems so. And then, in a sort of surprising twist, some local natives appear.
Right. How does that go?
Well, initially, they're terrified by the gunfire, but then they're amazed at how the leopard was killed, and they actually help Crusoe and Shuri drag the carcass out. It's this brief, unexpected sort of neutral interaction with other people.
Interesting. But all this is happening while they're actually trying to escape, right? They're not just fishing.
No, exactly. They're deliberately sailing south along the coast. The goal is to reach the Cape Verde area, hoping to find European ships, rescue ships.
And the plan works.
It does. They spot a Portuguese ship. Crusoe hails it, tells his story, and the captain they meet is just incredibly generous, almost unbelievably so.
How so?
He takes Crusoe's little boat and the goods they salvaged, keeps them safe, refuses any payment for Crusoe's passage to Brazil, gives him a promissory note for the boat, buys the animal skins Crusoe managed to keep.
Wow, like an angel descending.
Pretty much. Crusoe definitely sees him as an agent of Providence, but there's a bit of a bittersweet moment here with Shuri.
Ah, yes. What happens to Shuri?
The captain offers to buy Shuri from Crusoe. Crusoe's reluctant, they escape together, but the captain makes a proposal. He'll buy Shuri, but promises to free him in 10 years if the boy converts to Christianity.
And Shuri agrees.
Shuri agrees, so he stays with the captain. It's a significant separation for Crusoe, losing his companion in escape. But it also sets Shuri on a different path.
So from slavery to Brazil.
Yes, the generous captain brings him to Brazil, Todos Loraços, All Saints Bay, and the captain's kindness continues. He pays Crusoe for the skins and the goods he took for safekeeping. Crusoe lands with 220 piastres. Not a fortune, but a start.
A chance to start over.
Exactly. And he connects with a local plantation owner. The text calls it an ingenio, which means a plantation that also had its own sugar mill.
Okay, a working plantation.
Right. And Crusoe sees firsthand how profitable it is and how, settled and peaceful this life could be. It reminds him of that middle station his father always talked about.
The life he ran away from.
The very one. And so he decides, okay, this is it, I'll do it. He gets some land, becomes a farmer, sends word back to London for that small bit of capital he left with the widow.
And for a few years, he actually sticks to it.
Yeah.
He follows the path of prudence.
He does. He follows advice. His land thrives. He's growing sugar, tobacco. His old captain friend, the first one from the Guinea trips, even shows up again.
The generous one.
No, the one from before the slavery. The one whose widow has his money. He brings Crusoe goods from England, cloth, tools, weapons, and even brings a hired servant from Lisbon.
Helping him expand.
Yeah. And Crusoe buys another enslaved African worker, hires another servant. That captain also refuses payment for bringing the goods and servant, just reinforcing this theme of sort of unexpected human kindness cropping up.
So after 4 years, Crusoe's doing well. He's prosperous, connected.
Building a solid life, and he explicitly acknowledges it. He recognizes this is the Keskisein, Rahalasin, Huolatominantil, and the peaceful, carefree state of the middle station his father wanted for him. He's actually achieved it.
Finally, contentment at last.
You'd think so. But here's where that fatal flaw, that driving, restless ambition just rears its head again. Yep. Despite having achieved the life his father wanted, the life he himself acknowledged was good and peaceful, his oneton halunipeste kirtimen maitamanterita, his unhappy desire to travel lands and continents, it just persists. Completely contrary, he says, to sense and destiny.
It's like a compulsion. He recognizes the good life, but is still pulled towards something else.
Something riskier, something potentially more profitable. And this desire leads him to talk to some local merchants about his earlier trading experiences in Africa.
The Guinea trips.
Right. He mentions how profitable it was using cheap trinkets to get gold, grain, ivory, and significantly enslaved people.
And the merchants latch onto that last part.
They really do. The text notes that enslaved people were very expensive in Brazil then, partly because of the lack of asiento. That's the official permission or contract needed for the slave trade under the Spanish and Portuguese crowns. Getting them illicitly bypassed those expensive monopolies.
So it was lucrative to do it unofficially.
Highly lucrative. So 3 of these merchants come to Crusoe with a secret proposal. A voyage to Guinea, specifically to acquire enslaved people for their own plantations.
Secretly.
Very secretly. And they ask Crusoe to lead it. Here's the deal. He doesn't have to put up any money. He covers none of the costs.
Yeah.
His payment will be a share of the enslaved people they bring back.
Wow. High reward, seemingly low risk for him financially.
Exactly. And Crusoe, driven by this promise of, getting rich quick, essentially, without even needing his own capital, he agrees.
And this decision, born from that relentless restlessness,
directly sets the stage for his greatest ruin, the big one.
The voyage that changes absolutely everything. So they set sail. Where do things start to go wrong?
Pretty quickly. After the first storm, they find themselves way down south near the mouths of the Amazon or Orinoco rivers. There's a disagreement on board.
About what?
Crusoe wants to push on towards Barbados or another English island. The captain wants to turn back to Brazil, maybe cut their losses. They eventually decide to head for an English island.
A bad decision.
Catastrophic. A second storm hits, even more violent. It drives them far, far west, way off any known trade routes, into incredibly dangerous waters. Crusoe mentions the fear of being villian recolistens yotavexi, being eaten by wild savages if they even made it to land.
And then the ship hits something.
Hits a sandbank, hard. It breaks apart. And out of everyone on board, only Crusoe survives, washed up onto an unknown shore.
Just, wow, alone again.
Utterly alone. And his immediate reaction, it's fascinating. It's not despair over his lost companions or his ruined fortune. It's overwhelming joy, tears, gratitude just for being alive.
He compares it to a condemned man getting a pardon.
Exactly. He quotes something like, but sudden joy as well as sudden death both can bring ruin. Maybe foreshadowing, maybe just reflecting on how fragile life is.
And his first practical thought is? Unusual.
It really is. There's a thunderstorm, and his main worry isn't getting struck by lightning. It's whether his gunpowder supply is safe and dry.
Priorities.
Shows an immediate shift, doesn't it? Focus is instantly on the resources needed for survival. What do I need to live here? He must have wrestled with why he survived.
Oh, absolutely. He spends a lot of time reflecting on that, contrasting his survival with the deaths of the 10 others who were in the boat with him. He questions why he was spared, and he asks himself if his situation, however hard, isn't ultimately better than drowning. That quote is quite something, isn't it? About judging hard fortune.
Yeah. Enen kun kovan onen kovaksi tuomitsi pitäisi punita. Aikus sin liti jotan hiveaken, ja, aikus esataisi olla fileken kovempi. Before you condemn your hard luck, you should weigh up if there isn't some good in it, and consider if it couldn't have been even harder.
A profound bit of perspective, right there in the middle of despair.
It really is. And then he starts the practical stuff, salvaging from the wreck.
And he manages to get quite a lot, doesn't he, over several trips?
An incredible amount. Yes, the obvious things, food, weapons, tools, clothes, but also these unexpected items that speak to the life he's lost, but also maybe the life he can maintain, mentally at least.
Like what?
Paper, pens, ink, compasses, mathematical instruments, binoculars, maps, and books. Crucially, books, including 3 Bibles and some Portuguese Catholic prayer books.
Wow. Civilization in a salvaged chest.
Pretty much. And he carefully stores it all. He knows how valuable these things are now, beyond just their practical use.
And he gives the island a name.
He does. Epitavonsurexi, the island of despair, tells you his initial state of mind. And he starts a journal. Keeps it meticulously, recording his days until eventually the ink runs out. It's a way of holding on to structure, sanity.
And he keeps solving problems, the light situation.
Right. Needs light after dark, no candles, no oil. He remembers seeing beeswax candles made in Africa, but obviously he has none. So his solution is brilliantly practical.
Goat fat.
Goat fat. He gathers it, renders it down, makes a sort of makeshift lamp in a clay pot he fashions using some tow for a wick. It just highlights his resourcefulness, his ability to adapt and invent from nothing.
Then there's that moment with a grain. The barley and rice.
Ah, yes, that's another key moment. He finds these sprouts growing near his shelter, barley and rice. His first reaction is just pure astonishment. He thinks it's a direct miracle. Providence intervening.
A sign from God appearing out of nowhere.
Exactly. Only later he realizes they grew from a few seeds that must have fallen out of a discarded feed bag he'd salvaged from the ship ages ago.
Ah, so not quite a miracle then.
Well, yes and no. His reflection on that realization is what's important. He concludes that this unexpected providence, coming through a mundane source, something he brought, was actually just as miraculous and significant as if it had appeared supernaturally.
Finding the sacred in the accidental.
Precisely. It's a shift in how he understands divine intervention might work. He also starts to really understand the island's climate, figuring out the wet and dry seasons tied to the sun's position, totally different from Europe.
Learning to live with the place, not just on it.
Right. But as the years tick by, that isolation really bites. He talks about moments of selunadista soul distress, feeling like a prisoner, completely cut off.
But the Bible's help.
They become crucial. He starts reading them daily, finding real solace. And there's one specific verse that hits him incredibly hard.
Which one?
En koskan, mine sinwate ikte en kehilke. I will never, never leave you or forsake you. Hebrews 13.5, I think.
Powerful.
Deeply powerful for him in that situation. It leads him to realize, okay, if God hasn't abandoned me, then human abandonment, however painful, isn't the ultimate reality. It anchors him, gives him a different kind of strength.
He's busy though, doesn't he? Survival skills.
Oh yeah, constantly honing them, protecting his precious grain crops from the birds, the sivikaite varkaita, winged thieves.
How does he manage that?
His solution is, well, effective if brutal. He shoots 3 of the birds and hangs their carcasses up like scarecrows. And the text notes it worked remarkably well. The other birds stayed away.
Grimly practical. So years pass, 5, 10, 20.
Yeah.
Just routine survival.
A lot of routine, yes. Building, planting, hunting. But despite finding this faith, this reliance on God, that fundamental human need for connection, it never really goes away.
He still feels alone.
Deeply. He often feels the emptiness of not having another person to talk to. He even questions if talking to himself and praying to God is truly enough. That yearning for conversation remains.
And then, after all that silence,
he gets a companion, sort of, an unexpected one. He's working near a smaller boat he's built. He learned a hard lesson, trying to move a huge one he'd made earlier, couldn't launch it.
Right.
And he hears his name called out.
Robin Crusoe. Robin Crusoe Rocca. Misailet.
Poor Robin Crusoe, where are you? It's Pole, his parrot.
The one he taught to speak.
Exactly. He taught Pole those exact phrases years ago. Imagine hearing your own name, your own words spoken back to you after what? 20-plus years of total human silence?
Yeah, incredible. A small detail, but profound.
Absolutely. It breaks the endless silence in such a startling way.
Which makes the next big event even more, well, paradoxical, doesn't it?
You mean the footprint?
The footprint. After all those years longing for company, he finds a single human footprint in the sand.
And it terrifies him, utterly. He reflects on that sudden shift. Olin kako teleloni akana surutsite ete olin iksin. Yanit fapasim pelosta. I spent my whole time here lamenting being alone, and now I trembled with fear.
The abstract desire for company versus the concrete reality of other people.
Exactly. The reality brings paralyzing fear. It shakes him to his core. Initially, he even doubts God's protection again, but he pulls himself together through prayer, through the Bible. It forces him to confront what human presence might actually mean here. Maybe not rescue, maybe danger.
He continues exploring, though.
He does. He finds a cave at one point, discovers a dying goat inside. He notes its deep sigh sounds Ivan Quin Tuskisan Olevan Imisan Siveaukaus, like the deep sigh of a person in distress. Another moment blurring the lines between animal and human vulnerability.
And he finds another shipwreck later.
Yes, wreckage from a Spanish ship. He salvages more useful things, wine, powder, tools, some pots. But he notes the real treasures, like valuable hides and silver, are lost to the sea. Again, practical needs over wealth.
So the island isn't completely isolated from the world. Ships are passing, sometimes wrecking.
Exactly. Which brings us to the point where he actually witnesses human activity on his shore. But it's not rescuers.
It's cannibals.
Yes. He sees them on the beach with prisoners, a horrific sight that just shatters his isolated world completely.
And this leads directly to rescuing Friday.
It does. He sees 2 prisoners make a break for it, sees them being pursued, And Crusoe, after all his fear of others, decides he has to intervene. He uses his guns,
Shoots the pursuers.
saves one of the prisoners, a young man. He manages to communicate a little, finds out the other escapee might be Christianis or Espanol, a Christian or Spaniard. He gives the man, he saves some rum and bread, takes him in.
But the danger isn't over.
No, more pursuers arrive in another canoe. This leads to a fight. Crusoe arms his new companion, who he soon names Friday, after the day he rescued him and the other escapee, who does turn out to be a Spaniard.
And the firearms make a difference.
A huge difference. Devastatingly effective against the cannibals' weapons. Friday proves very capable with an axe, too, and the Spaniard fights bravely, despite being weak from captivity.
And then, amidst all that chaos, there's that amazing moment.
The reunion. Friday suddenly dashes off towards the shore where another of the cannibals' boats had landed, and finds his own father among the prisoners there.
Just incredible. A father and son reunited in the middle of this battle.
It's powerfully emotional. And suddenly, with this act, Crusoe is transformed. He's no longer just a solitary survivor. He's become, as he puts it, the king of his own island kingdom.
With loyal subjects.
Loyal subjects, exactly. Friday's father, the Spaniard, people who fought alongside him, whose lives he saved, who now depend on him.
And it's a diverse little kingdom.
Very diverse. Friday becomes a Protestant under Crusoe's influence. His father remains pagan. The Spaniard is Catholic. And yet, Crusoe notes, they have Tidelenin omantunum vapos, complete freedom of conscience.
He builds a society based on loyalty and survival, not religious uniformity.
Which is quite remarkable, really. They share their lives, they butcher a goat, make food, eat together. Friday, who picks up English quickly, now acts as translator for his father and the Spaniard, who apparently knew some of the local native language from his time on the mainland.
The mainland. The Spaniard shares some information about that.
Crucial information. He tells Crusoe there are 16 other survivors from his shipwreck, Spaniards and Portuguese, living among the native tribes on the mainland. They're alive, but struggling. He tells their story of survival.
So there are more potential subjects for Crusoe's kingdom.
Exactly. And this spurs Crusoe into action. He decides, right, let's bring them here. Let's turn this island refuge into a proper colony.
Which means preparing.
Big time. He sets about cultivating significantly more land, planting more crops, getting ready to feed a much larger group, planning ahead.
And then he sends the Spaniard and Friday's father.
Back to the mainland, yeah. In one of the boats, well armed, with instructions to find the others and bring them back to the island.
But Crusoe gives the Spaniard a very specific instruction first, doesn't he? About loyalty.
Oh, yes. Very Crusoe-esque. He makes the Spaniard promise that absolutely no man will be brought back unless he has first sworn total loyalty and obedience to Crusoe as governor.
He wants control.
Order.
Absolutely. He even notes the slightly funny detail that they kind of forgot they didn't have any paper or ink for a written oath, but the verbal promise was paramount.
So they set off, and Crusoe waits.
He waits. 8 days pass, no sign of return. And Crusoe reflects that this plan, this is the first real, deliberate attempt he's made to actually leave the island, or at least fundamentally change his life there in, 26 years?
A huge moment of anticipation.
Massive. But the arrival that comes, it isn't the Spaniard and the survivors. Friday wakes him early one morning, shouting,
Master, master, netu lejo, netu lejo.
"They're coming already. They're coming already."
But it's not who they expected. No. What they see is an English boat landing. But there are 3 men bound inside, prisoners. It's a mutiny. An English ship has arrived, but under mutineers' control.
Wow. From cannibals to mutineers, never a dull moment.
Never. They watch the mutineers. They seem drunk, careless. They ground their boat on the beach, wander off, apparently planning to just abandon the prisoners there, maroon them.
Just like Crusoe was marooned, in a way.
The irony isn't lost. So Crusoe, seeing his chance, maybe the chance, approaches the prisoners carefully. He speaks English, identifies himself just as a friend, someone who can help.
Who are the prisoners?
It's the ship's captain, his mate, and a passenger. They quickly explain the situation. The crew mutinied, took the ship, and now plan to leave them here to die.
And Crusoe sees an opportunity.
A massive one. He agrees to help them retake their ship. They make a plan. They ambush the main group of mutineers who came ashore. There's a fight. Some are killed, others taken prisoner.
Dealing with the shore party first.
Right. Then they use one of the captured mutineers, a guy named John, to call out to the others still near the boat. Negotiate a surrender.
Under the captain's authority.
Yes. The captain offers a pardon to most of them, but specifically excludes the ringleader, a man named Will Atkins. Atkins is told he has to appeal to the governor. That's Crusoe, still hit him for mercy. You hear Atkins pleading.
Crusoe's still pulling the strings from behind the scenes.
Masterminding it. The captain and his loyal men then take the boats, approach the ship at night. They use John again to trick the mutineers left on board, manage to get aboard, and after another fight, they regain control of the vessel.
Incredible. He orchestrates the recapture of an entire ship.
From his island prison. And so finally, Robinson Crusoe leaves the island of despair. The date is December 19th, 1686.
He knows exactly how long he was there.
To the day, 28 years, 2 months, and 19 days. And he notes that amazing coincidence. December 19th was the very same calendar day he'd escaped from slavery in Salé all those years ago.
Fate, providence.
Yeah.
It keeps circling back.
It really does. As he leaves, he takes just a few souvenirs. His goatskin jacket, that iconic umbrella he made, and Paul the parrot.
Not the money.
Leaves the money behind. Says it had blackened over the years, become useless to him. Symbolically very powerful.
And he finally reaches England.
June 11th, 1687. After being away for 35 years in total, he notes he's a stranger there, unrecognized in his own homeland.
What an absolutely incredible arc when you lay it out like that. From this restless kid who couldn't stand stability.
Through just disaster after disaster, some self-inflicted, some just terrible luck. Through captivity, isolation.
To becoming the solitary ruler of an island, building a life from literally nothing.
And then ending up as a rescuer himself, a figure of authority, bringing order out of chaos, even orchestrating the recapture of a ship. It's quite the journey.
Crusoe's transformation, that feels like the real core of it, doesn't it? He spends his youth running away from home, from responsibility, chasing fortune and adventure.
Yeah, and yet he finds this strange kind of peace, this purpose, only when he's stripped of absolutely everything. Isolated, forced to build not just, shelter and find food, but a moral life, a spiritual life, really, from scratch.
So for you listening, Robinson Crusoe's story, especially when you look at these specific moments we've touched on, it's just such a powerful exploration of resilience, isn't it? Adapting to the absolute worst the unforeseen can throw at you.
It really is. It shows how even when everything you plan just falls apart and you were at the lowest possible point, the resources you didn't even know you had.
Both the literal stuff you salvage.
Right, the tools, the gunpowder, but also that internal stuff, the strength, the ingenuity, the faith you might cultivate. Those become the foundation for building something completely new.
Something maybe more meaningful than what you lost in the first place.
Possibly, yeah.
So here's something to maybe ponder as you go about your day. Crusoe spent literally years yearning for human company, for the sound of another voice, for connection. But when he found that single footprint in the sand, the actual sign of other humans, he was overcome with profound terror.
Paralyzing fear.
He fled civilization, seeking adventure and wealth, but he found a different kind of life, a different kind of meaning, only when forced into total isolation.
So what does that intense paradox, that contradiction, tell us about the things we chase so relentlessly versus the things we perhaps truly need? For survival, yes, but also for meaning. And where do we actually find belonging? Is it out there in the world of others? Or is this something we have to find within ourselves, especially when we're stripped bare?
A lot to think about there. That brings us to the end of this deep dive.
It's been fascinating revisiting these moments.